We got lots of video games launching, Pokemon and Magic. Let's talk. What up, viewers? What up? What up? Couch Soups here, and today is Friday, September 20th, and that means it's time for a quick recap of the week in video game news. Like I said, there's a lot of games to talk about, but let's hop right in. Starting off with PlayStation's 30th anniversary, so to celebrate 30 years of PlayStation, which is actually surprising. I thought PlayStation was older than I am, but I guess it's not. Celebrating 30th anniversary this week, and I'm kind of starting to look at their marketing plan and seeing all the strings because they announced a classic look for their recently announced PS5 Pro. So the classic PlayStation look of gray on gray and has been applied to the PlayStation Pro, which actually I think looks really cool and really kind of nostalgic for all those people who really enjoyed the old PlayStation consoles and the design and art style and color palette. Yeah, it looked pretty cool. So they announced that this week, and it even comes with a controller that has that kind of gray on gray look. So yeah, it's all very nostalgic and funny that it's coming a week after. I'm curious if any negative sentiment had anything to do with this, but yeah, in order to celebrate their 30th anniversary, there is a classic looking PS5 Pro, which actually looks really cool. So maybe you could buy the controller by itself. I haven't dug in too deeply on that, but I think it does look fun and interesting. Although my one follow up was can I get a disc drive that looks the same way? Because unfortunately I'm going to keep beating that drum because I want a disc drive in my consoles even in the year 2024. Moving right along to get to our video games, Frostpunk 2 is finally here and launched this week with an 86 Metacritic. The articles I have looked over kind of give a guide and talk about what tech you want to invest in sooner rather than later. So I'll have a link down below for you to check those out. And yeah, excited to see that Frostpunk 2 is doing well coming out of the gate. I never played the first one, but I did watch through several playthroughs of the first one. And yeah, it's just a world that I love, kind of second party looking over someone's shoulder while they're playing it, because it's a really interesting world. But yeah, the nuts and bolts and the management of the people, just and maybe I'll get into this one, but didn't get into the last one. So if you're playing Frostpunk 2 and you need some guides to help you with what to invest your time and energy and citizens into, I'll have a link down below for you to check that out. Another game coming out this week, the Plucky Squire. I think I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I think I talked about it a couple weeks ago. It is launched this week with an 84 Metacritic. I talked about it because it looked very Zelda-like. It actually looked like a love letter to kind of the Zelda series because you switch from both 2D to 3D, and it's very Zelda inspired when you run around the overworld and jump around and fight, swinging your sword and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it looks very fun. The reviews that I've read say it's very fun for the very family friendly and something that you can enjoy with your family. But that it somewhat lacks depth, which I can kind of see for something that's kind of going for that kind of nostalgia bait, but also fun for the whole family kind of thing. So I might actually consider picking it up and seeing how my kids respond to the little pinky sprites running around the town. But yeah, and as a huge fan of Zelda games, anything that falls into that kind of Zelda-like category has always caught my eye. Another game that is launching this week, and I believe at one point was the number one most wish-listed cozy game, if that's a whole category on Steam, the number one most wish-listed cozy game. Tiny Glade. I've talked about it a couple times on the channel, but it launched with a 70 Metacritic this week, and that's a little lower than you'd kind of want for something that I think had a lot of hype behind it. The few articles that I read about it were talking about how some of your choices are restrictive at certain points, but that the game has immaculate vibes and is cozy as hell. So as someone who's kind of waiting for the next Zelda game, and I'm in between Space Marine 2 and Zelda, this might be something I pick up just for some vibes only, to play at 1 a.m. when I'm trying to fall asleep. But yeah, if you've picked up Tiny Glade and are playing through it, I'd love to hear what you think of it down below. Um, there was a big article this week talking about how much money Microsoft has been spending to bring third-party games to Game Pass. Bloomberg had an article talking that it is somewhere in the ballpark, if not more than $1 billion each year to put third-party titles on Game Pass. You know, only Microsoft can burn that kind of cash, as you know. Obviously, Game Pass and Xbox aren't the biggest piece of their business. Um, and yeah, I mean, I knew that there was a lot of kind of Game Pass money being thrown around a lot, and I know working on the indie side, like how much of the money can be used up front and how much money they pay to just like bring a title to Game Pass. So I've kind of seen that money, and that can make or break some indie games. And when we talked a couple months ago about how that money is kind of dried up for now, and they're not seeing a return on investment on that money, I could definitely see it considering what I've seen some of the deals do. But yeah, I $1 billion is a lot. You know, when you see a couple million here and a couple million there, it's interesting that that adds up. You know, and how many titles they're bringing to third party, and whether or not that resulted in the Game Pass, you know, subscriber numbers hitting what their goals would be, or how much they would have to, how many Game Pass subscribers there would have to be in order to make that money back. Um, but you know, I bet they brought a lot of people to the Microsoft ecosystem using it, so maybe there's some ROI there. But yeah, $1 billion a year for the last 4 or 5 years is quite a lot of money to spend on, and I'm not sure kind of what the big third party games that have been coming out to Game Pass. There's a lot of them that I've picked up over the years, but I'm curious what the big money makers as far as third party Game Pass deals have been. So interested to check that out. Moving right along, we all kind of suspected when Pal World dropped that Pokemon would probably have something to say about it, but they haven't. Well, they haven't until now. The Pokemon Company has officially come forth with a lawsuit against Hidden World, I think is the developer behind Pal World, and the speculation and rumors based on the public, lawsuit is that it might have something to do with like Pokeball. Like that's the way that they're going, is like the Pokeball throwing and catching of monsters is the copyright infringement that they feel is being violated, as opposed to, I know that there's been a lot of like legal breakdowns about how the creatures are legally distinct, and even though some of the models seem a little bit too close for comfort, but adding guns into that might dissuade that. But it sounds like the legal team has finally kind of got their act together, and I'm curious why it took 6 months to kind of pull this together, other than maybe it was a money threshold, like as soon as you made enough money then you're not a big enough threat to go after, or they needed to do 6 months of due diligence to like make sure that they have like this is the exact part that they can go after to do the copyright infringement. So pretty interesting stuff. I'm curious how this will all shake out, but I think we all kind of expected that it was coming, and we took our eye off the Pokeball, to coin a phrase there. But yep, I think we all kind of knew it was coming. Moving right along, as part of Geeked Week, Netflix has announced, and there's been a lot of stuff coming and filling up my feed this week about some Netflix shows. One of which I think we all kind of knew was dead, and we might have had friends in the industry that have talked about it. But the Magic the Gathering animated show that was announced in 2019 and had the Russo brothers on it, and had Brandon Routh as like as a voice actor, is actually happening. Except all the stuff that made it collapse and go away is still happened. Like the Russo brothers are no longer in the project. Brandon Routh is no longer, VO on the project. So, but apparently the Magic animated show is still happening. Whether or not it is the one from 2019 or if it's a brand new one, I think they're trying to like sweep that under the rug. On whether or not these are two completely different shows with the same name or something like that. But yeah, I've had pretty good sources telling me that like this is dead and not going to happen. But apparently Netflix is doubling down on it and has been keeping it alive in the background for the past half decade or so. So I do want to see a Magic animated series, and And as I get back involved in Magic the Gathering, like there's so many cool stories being told and stuff that I don't know from like the grander lore perspective that I would love to see explored in an animated show. So I am excited to see it, but I was very certain that it was dead up until this week. So I guess it's still alive, and let me know down below if you're looking forward to it as well. This last week was the Emmys, and the Fallout TV series has joined the ranks of the cool kids who have actually won Emmys for their video game and adaptations that have won Emmys. It's a short list, including Arcane as well as The Last of Us Season 1. So, yeah, I think it's well deserved. As a huge Fallout fan, obviously I am massively biased, but I think the show did great. It won 2 Emmys, one for like music or sound design, and one for like new innovative something or other. I don't remember what the exact wording is for like the new category that it won an award in. I do know that it was nominated for 16, walked away with 2, which is pretty cool. But overall, congrats to the teams behind Fallout, the TV show, and I'm looking forward to season 2. But I doubt that's going to be coming down the pipe anytime soon. Speaking of taking some time coming down the pipe, Respawn has started to talk about the Jedi series, the most recent Jedi Survivors. I know I bounced off of, but I'm still kind of interested in that world and what's being explored in those video games. And they've started talking about how this will be a trilogy. So this third game that is coming up in the Jedi : series will be the last portion. The last portion of this kind of trilogy that we've been exploring. So really interested to see what they do in the third one. I gotta eventually pick up the second one and finish it off. But I think some people are already starting to speculate whether or not this means the death of Cal Kestis and whether or not Order 66 is somehow involved, because we haven't reached that point in the timeline yet. So, or I think we have, right? Order 66, isn't that the beginning of the first one? Anyway, I am kind of interested in what's going on in the Jedi : series, so excited to hear that there will at least be one more that kind of wraps it up and puts a bow on it. So happy to see that from Respawn. Last but not least this week, immediately after this, I expect you to go over and follow the link to check out the Helldivers 2 Anthem. There is an official galactic anthem for Helldivers 2, and you can listen to it. It's got lyrics, you can sing along. It also comes with the whole, like, it linked within the article is the whole soundtrack that is now up on Spotify, and you can listen to it all. But you can sing your heart out and speak and shout the Helldivers 2 anthem to your neighbors' discontent, your unpatriotic neighbors' discontent. But yeah, it's really funny. I watched it. I've already watched it a couple times, and it's got some pretty tongue-in-cheek lyrics in there that are pretty fun, and I'm excited to see the rest of the soundtrack as well and listen to that. But yeah, definitely leave here and go immediately over to listen to the Helldivers 2 anthem that was dropped today. But that's it for this week. Let me know if you feel I forgot anything down below in the comments. Any form of engagement and algorithm bait is very helpful, so any of that is greatly appreciated as well. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super weekend, and I hope you have a super day. Bye!